Thank you for watching, tuning in once again to the Arizona Breakdown. My name is Andre.
I'm Ryan. Welcome back.
And today we are joined by...
I'm Eric Claasen, also go by ETC or etc.
Hell yeah. And so today is a very exciting episode because we are not just a metal podcast. We might have done a lot of metal bands, but we do not want to be pigeonholed into just that genre. And today we are breaking out of our little pigeonhole.
You think we're ready for it?
I mean...
I hope so.
Can we do this? Yeah, can we do this?
We're about to find out.
Okay.
I'm honored to be I'm pretty honored to be the first one. That's pretty cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, so we're going to be taking a little step into the Arizona hip hop today. And we're going to be talking to the man himself, Eric.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I did start in the metal scene as well. So like that's kind of where we got a little bit of our connection there. But I've been pretty fortunate to just kind of be able to kind of dip my toes into the water of the hip hop scene a little bit. Been able to perform a few shows, do a couple of open mics, get connected with some of the scene and stuff. It's a pretty cool community, actually. I think that like the talent that's in Arizona right now, I end up listening to more local music than I do anything else nowadays anyways, just because there's so many talented artists. And I mean, as a fan of hip hop, one of my favorite things about being a part of this scene now is that I have the opportunity to go create music with people I listen to on the regular basis now. You know, like I don't need to be on a huge record label to go make a track with one of my favorite artists, you know? Hell yeah. It's really cool. So there's like a ton of art. I'm sure we'll end up talking about a couple of them as we go through the evening, but there is I think it's really cool that you're making this connection here between the hip hop and the metal community, because I think there's just a lot of opportunity for the fan bases of both communities to kind of like intermingle. I think that a lot of the fans of both communities like would like both genres. Specifically, like pulling from my own experience, you know, one of the things that I love about metal and hardcore has always been just kind of the counterculture, like intense passion. I've always said that like if you could boil it down, metal is essentially anger as like music. You know, like it's the emotion of anger expressed musically, and I think that you feel a lot of that same type of energy in hip hop and rap. It's just it's telling a different version of a similar story. And so that was what kind of drew me into rap and hip hop in the first place. Like, I mean, you see like the same type of anger and energy you get from Slipknot, you also see in Eminem. You know what I mean? Like that same type of aggression and like kind of just like fuck the system, you know? And so like in Rage Against the Machine, you know, is another good example as like kind of like a bridge genre sort of band. But yeah, like I've been pretty fortunate to get kind of connected to both of those communities and see that you know, like there is like a lot of opportunity for the Arizona scene to kind of connect in both of those areas. You know, there's a huge fan base in the metal community. There's a huge fan base in the rap community. I think that would be really cool to start seeing more of that merging together. Yeah.
And I mean, it's definitely from what I hear, the Arizona hip hop scene is definitely just on an upswing at the moment. Yeah,
I'm seeing a lot. Like I've been fortunate enough to also be kind of like an observer as well for a lot of the hip hop scene. Just as like kind of as I started to introduce myself to it, I started to like get connected to the people who are putting on shows. You know, reaching out and making friend requests to different people I see performing a lot. Different people, different producers and studios and that kind of stuff. And I've gotten a chance to like kind of see from the outside perspective collectively what that scene is kind of moving towards. And you see like a lot of ebbs and flows like with everything. But like I said, the talent pool is just absolutely massive. I'm seeing actually a lot of it in the metal scene right now too. Like I the other day I was listening to some like if you listen to even bigger bands like August Burns Red back from like 2008, like the quality of the product that was being produced back then by labeled bands is worse than what you're seeing being produced by local bands here nowadays. I like it's incredible. Like what the I would say it has to do with the access to production.
Oh yeah, the jump in technology has
been
like huge in the past 10 years.
Yeah, and then having that access to so many talented musicians who otherwise may not have had the experience of being able to be tracked like that, like getting their music in front of people in a way that like really demonstrates their talent and stuff. I think it's forcing the whole scene to grow.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just by that nature of the competition, you know, we want to see our friends succeed, but we want to produce dope shit too, you know?
Yeah, instead of recording your shit on a fucking Tascam tape recorder.
Yeah.
Now you got guys at home with Pro Tools rigs and Ableton rigs and shit.
Yep.
The amount of pre-pro that you guys can do, can do now is like,
I was
it
gonna
helps
say,
so much.
I've got a goddamn home little studio setup that I don't have any fucking idea how to use.
Yeah.
But I've got one.
But it was accessible to you as well. You know,
Yeah.
that's exactly my point. Like, I think that you're seeing that force is also being pushed heavily in the hip hop scene. You're seeing a lot of dudes who are not just writing their own music, but they're producing their own beats and recording their own music and stuff too. Like, and I think that's pushing the talent pool a lot. And I think because of that, you're starting to see stuff happen. Like, there's a guy, Pariah Pete. He just sold out a show last night. Jalopy Bungus has been doing really cool stuff, traveling around, like in.
That's a tight name.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah,
I like it.
I know. He's a really dope artist too. He's been doing one cool thing that I thought was actually like a really interesting distinction between hip hop and metal is hip hop has battle rap as a culture. Jalopy Bungus, the reason I bring it up though is he's a dope battle rapper too. But what's really fascinating is I got to see like a battle rap start and then kind of like explode on the internet and then happen as an event and like watch, and then watch what that did to the community and stuff. It was really cool, like as like a galvanizing tool for like fan participation because you don't have anything like that in the metal community. I mean, you have like a battle of the bands, but that's not like it never gets personal there.
Right.
Yeah.
With a rap battle, they'll like drag your whole family. You know, like,
Dude, that was like Twitter before Twitter was Twitter.
exactly.
It was getting people all fucking riled up, talking
dude,
shit.
Yeah,
but they
I'll
would
tell
do it
you
in
what,
person.
though, man. Like, that hyped the whole scene. That got everybody talking about these two artists, and like, it would be really cool to try to like brainstorm and find a way to like bring something like that to the metal community. But it was like watching a build up for like a UFC fight.
Yeah, dude. I was gonna say, you literally couldn't do that with the metal scene because, like, with battle rap, you go into it with that mentality of just like,
They're gonna fight each other.
we're gonna say some shit. But I feel like, you could never have like a metal band have that because it'd be like, oh yeah, well, I mean, we're just gonna post a very vague Facebook status.
Well, yeah, but also, I mean, like the nature of those genres, like, I mean, you can't go out there and like improv a whole band writing one breakdown. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, everyone's got to be on the same page. You got to like coordinate it, practice it, and perform it. You know, like it's like a whole other thing.
I would like to see some metal beef though. That'd be cool.
It would be cool.
A whole song dedicated to fucking like your mom is so fat.
Dude, yeah, they could do. Okay, they could
That'd
do a
be
beef
entertaining
like that.
as shit. In
Like
good-hearted nature. I don't want to see anyone get hurt, but yeah.
But like they could do like when MGK and Eminem were doing their beef and just going song for song.
Yeah, that'd be fun,
Absolutely.
man.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
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 Well, it'd be a way to bring like a competitive nature into the metal scene, and I think that is something that would galvanize like fan participation because that's something I've noticed is like a challenge at a local level is how do you get people to be interested enough to not only click on your links and stuff like that because that's one challenge in itself, but to actually show up at a show, especially like in the summer in Arizona, because I can't tell you like unless someone is paying me to leave my home, I'm not going out in that heat. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but we
rough.
like. As a musician, you're still doing shit in the summer. Like that's a good time to be playing shows because people are off school, like less busy, more likely to show up. You know, but it's like it's hard to like figure out how to galvanize people to come out. So
Yeah, I mean the other side of that would be hopefully it wouldn't deteriorate the scene.
right, yeah, you
'Cause
don't
now
want to
all of a
actually
sudden-
create like real beefs.
Because all of a sudden you guys got fucking bunch of alphas. Like, wait, what the fuck did he say in that song? And now
then-
this shit talking, and now
like,
the
real
scene is
fights
just
happen.
yeah. It's like, oh man, we took that Mama song way too far.
I feel like the rap community kind of has that mentality that they can embrace that aspect of it though.
It's
It
part of
sounds
it.
like
Well, it's like when you see like two people who beef like before a fight and then afterwards they shake hands.
Yeah.
Very similar. Yeah. You see the same kind of thing. Or at least that's what I saw from like the outside looking in. You know, watching that rap beef happen. There was that one in particular was between Jalopy Bungus and this other dude. I don't know. And then Dre True. And Dre True was from like Atlanta.
Okay.
And so him coming out here and doing that rap battle, even though they talked so much, like you thought it was going to be one of those things where like nobody ever listened to Dre True after that if he got beat. But he actually got a lot of like support and connections through Arizona scene, even though like he kind of got his ass kicked in the rap battle, you know. But the point of that being like that ended up up being great promotional stuff for both artists, and the fans loved it.
Yeah.
You know, like even though they watched someone just get dragged, like they were like, there's something fun. Like it was like watching Anderson Silva in a fight sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas like sometimes it's just fun to watch someone get their ass kicked.
Until they break their fucking leg.
Yeah, exactly. But like, yeah, exactly. But it was really cool watching he took his L and then like was able to like keep going and like made a lot of like connections through the scene and stuff like that. And like it would be cool like when talking about blending the scenes and stuff like that, finding a way to bring that competitive nature of hip hop into the metal scene too.
Yeah,
That'd be fun as shit.
That'd be a fun thing to like kind of try to incorporate.
Yeah, dude, and there's a lot of dudes who have been making the switch from metal to rap, and I mean, like
I said, there's a lot of natural connection between the two. Like I said, the energy is really similar, and so if you're a fan of one genre, there's a strong likelihood you're a fan of the other. You know? Yeah. There's a lot to pull from both that you can get as a fan from both. You know.
All right, now tell me about these open mic nights.
Okay.
What's that like?
So it depends on where you go, because an open mic is you're playing Russian roulette.
Right.
Like it could be absolutely incredible, or it could be one of the weirdest experiences of your life.
Is it more cringe than not?
I will say the ones that I've been to have been mostly incredible. Like there has been, I don't know what it is about Phoenix, but there is a shit ton of artists who really know how to do their stuff. And what's really like, what I've noticed jumping between the metal, the hip hop, and the open mic communities is there are so many sub communities of the same genre in which there are unbelievably talented artists that would do well in their connection with each other, but they just never hear about each other.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of like why I go out to these open mics, and I'm surprised to see how much talent is out there. Like I've gone out there and I'd be like, I would buy your music. I would, like, if you had a physical copy of your CD right now, I would absolutely pay for it. You know, even though I could probably go stream it on Spotify. I would say most of the artists that I've seen at these open mics have been incredible. But there have definitely been some cringe stuff, especially because like open mics can be. I'll tell you a funny story. So open mics can be like a any kind of genre approach. You know, what the first open mic that I went to out here, this guy was walking up on stage and they were like, "Hey, please don't set everything on fire this time." You know, like apparently he had done that the night before or something like that. Like, but you know, you could see anything at these events. But like one of the ones that I had mentioned earlier, Poetic Soul, is which was a really good connection for me. I at least for my own experience, is mostly like a hip hop. There's like a few comedians, like R&B artists and that kind of stuff that come through. But I've never gone to a Poetic Soul night and felt like the best artist in the room. Like I'm always blown away by almost every single person who goes up on the stage at that one, and they do it that's actually like a pretty incredible phenomena in itself, is the Poetic Soul events, because they do it every Wednesday, and they usually have over 100 people there, and they charge like $10 a ticket for the shows, and it's all open mic. There's like they do like they'll do one featured artist, but the rest of it is just open mic stuff, and they turn numbers all the time. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty incredible. But no, there was this one open mic that we went to where, so they'll have like family friendly portions, and then they'll have like the now you're at a real open mic, literally anything could happen kind of portions, you know?
Like lighting things on fire.
Yeah, like lighting things on fire, or telling like a really intimate sex story, you know, like that happens, which is actually like, so we went to this open mic, me and I think like a couple of like friends of ours. We'd like gotten to know the MC for this open mic. It was we'd gone like maybe like 4 or 5 times beforehand, but the first like hour and a half of this one in particular was the family friendly portion. And so the before each evening, the MC would go up on stage and like kind of just give the spiel of like, hey, you know, like right now it's kids safe, but in an hour, either it's your responsibility at that point. We're not taking responsibility for what your kids hear. And so he was like, with that said, we're going to invite one of our safe performers. This like, it was like this older black woman. She was like late 60s, and her name was Sunshine. And like, we'd seen her perform before, always like super pleasant. She just did these like lighthearted poetry stuff. And she, for whatever reason, that evening she went up on stage and just told the most erotic, like
hell yeah,
hypersexual poem, like about like this pastor that she fell in love with in the South, and they had this like passionate love affair, and like,
oh my.
it was like, I know, we were like, we were like, damn. Like she was talking about like dick size and everything, you know, like we were like, oh my God. And like you see the MC on the side of the stage, like beat red, you know, like, and like there's like 6-year-olds in the audience and stuff, you know. So you
don't call me safe.
Right.
I'll show you.
Yeah, exactly. That was, I'm sure it was a big fuck you. But, oh my gosh. But like you, like I said, you literally see anything at these open mics. I've seen that. And then like there are times where, like I said, I'm so blown away by these artists that like I want to support them financially.
Hell yeah.
You know, like
awesome.
I've like I kind of have this vision where if I ever find myself in a position to be able to sponsor musicians and that kind of stuff, that's how I want to recruit for like a label would be just go to open mics and find these artists, because I there's so many of them. I tried to connect some of them to like local studios and like different artists and stuff like that, but I don't think it ever ended up panning out. But like there's so many talented musicians that just like, because they don't have the support or their local community doesn't see the talent that they have, or they don't know like I can't tell you how many musicians I've met and they're like, I'm like, do you have anything recorded? And they're like, I don't even know where to go, you know, which is crazy to think about because like, I mean, coming from our community, everyone we know has a home studio, you know, like it's out there everywhere. But then there's all these artists who have like, they have no idea what they're doing. They just know how to make music and they heard about an open mic and they're incredible, you know, like it's such an untapped resource. It's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is it kind of like the comedian thing where you get like a good little group and then they start to fucking be like, oh, how am I gonna follow that?
Yes.
Like, oh man, I wish I would have gone first.
Yeah. There's I mean, like it goes up and down in waves through the evening as you're going on. But there's definitely times where you're like, I shouldn't have to follow that.
Collateral lobotomies are coming when I'm with the pen erratically, scratching frantically to bleed a masterpiece. Pardon the analogy, I'm like a 2-ton blunt pass in the alleyways. Leave your gut sick, mind shift to another galaxy. Screaming metal was my pedigree, then I fell in love with the poetry. Beatdowns and breakdowns of boom baps and SoundCloud. Hands in the air if you follow me. Made a shift in the rhythm, still on my shit, yelling fuck the system. Y'all got my stomach twisted, past pretending. Reconciliation gave way to the whole.
And we are back after that commercial break. Hopefully you enjoyed it. So let's talk about you for a little bit. Let's talk about your music.
Yeah.
So,
you said you wanted to go through like lyrics and that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So one of the things that I try to do pretty consciously with some of my music for people who are just kind of like unfamiliar with some of the stuff that I do is I try to put as much of consciousness into it. Like there's like the whole genre of conscious rap, but lyricism is incredibly important to me. Like the subject matter, like what I'm saying. If I'm trying to get someone to listen to my music, I want to say something that's worth listening to. But also at the same time, I want to create something that's appealing to listen to as well. So I try to kind of find a middle ground to blend between lyrical content, but also like sonic appeal as well. You know, like I like sometimes I find myself, like when I first started doing writing and stuff like that, because I first got interested in music and stuff through poetry. So I've always been involved in like the lyrical aspect of everything. So that's why words have just been kind of my main focus. Mm-hmm. But one of the problems that I encountered when I first started writing, specifically in rap, but also in metal as well, was that I was trying to say too much. So there would be parts of my songs where it would just be congested with lyrical content.
Oh, okay.
Which is like some people really enjoy. Like a comment that I've received a lot on my music as I've progressed as an artist has been the density of my content. You know, like that you can spend a large portion of time examining just like a couple lyrics, which is in itself is cool as an art form, but like if you're just listening to music, that's not always what you're trying to listen for. You know, like you're not always listening for a song that's going to make you sit and think for 30 minutes. Sometimes you just want something that's just fun to listen to.
Yeah, I can't think for very long.
Yeah, exactly. And even as a creator of that type of art, I have my limits as well. You know, like where there are times where I'm just like, I'm too exhausted. Like I just want to bob my head to something for a little bit. I just want to be angry or happy or whatever the emotion is. Just feel that rather than think about it. And so I try to, as best I can, blend those two concepts. Cause like I said, like I do think that, what I'm saying is important to me. But also at the same time, I want to create something that someone enjoys. So like, we were talking about like the concept of breaking down like lyrical structures. Or not structure, but like content. One of the lyrics that I have at the intro to this, my latest EP that I released it goes, now I'm blanking because I'm thinking about it. It goes, woke up on the other side of arguing with God. Told him I did not believe a single word they taught. How you going to build a box and put it in the sky, take apart the holy things and fit them all inside? Just basically, a little bit of background on myself is I grew up really religious. My kind of like way to deal with a world that wasn't exactly always in my favor as a kid was to lean into religion. That was definitely my coping strategy for that kind of stuff. And so my relationship to God has always been like a big, not necessarily, not like a point of contention, but like a point of like focus for me. I've always been interested in like, not necessarily the concept of God, but like the why of humanity. Like, why are we here? Where did we come from? Like just like the esoteric questions, you know? Like the really like meaty ideas of being alive, you know? And so for a long time, religion provided that answer for me in a way that was like helpful. And so I like to talk about that a lot in my music, but where I'm at now in my life, it just kind of like, I've started to realize that, the boxes that we create for God are, rather than being boxes, they should be lenses through which we examine God. So I tend to think that like, we're only capable of, we only have the perspective that we have. You know what I mean? Like we can't, I don't know what the world looks like from your perspective or your perspective. But like we all have our own interpretation of what God looks like, what truth looks like, and that kind of stuff. And I think that, when you take out buzzwords like Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, when you take out that kind of stuff and you really look at the meat of belief, there's a lot of commonality between people. Yeah. And what I see kind of in the ideas of religion, I see a narrative designed to help convey ideas. In like in a pre-modern society, one of the methods for conveying morals and ethics and that kind of stuff was storytelling for the longest time. And you know, most religions are up from that time period. Yeah. And so the ideas of morality and stuff were conveyed through really mythical, really intense ideas, and some of them blended with natural history as well, but also with religious, like, you know, not exploitation, but like extra stuff to just make it seem more
grandiose.
Exactly. Yeah. But ultimately they're all lessons in humanity. And so as I've moved out of structured religion, my relationship with God has remained in its own context, my own connection to the universe. And I like to talk about that kind of stuff in the music as well. And so that's why that particular EP is referred to as, it's called Astral Science, which is actually an anagram of my name, Eric T. Claasen. Isn't that cool?
Dude, the more you talk, the more you're giving me ideas. It's like, keep going.
It's an awesome way. Like if you're struggling with an EP name, just anagrams. Like it's a great way to go.
That's awesome.
And then it makes people think you're cooler than you are. But
even your phrase "lessons in humanity."
Yeah.
That's a fucking cool title.
Run with that, please.
I came up with it first after he said it.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, so the concept of those lyrics, take apart the holy things and fit them all inside, or woke up on the other side of arguing with God, told him I did not believe a single word they taught. How are you going to build a box and put it in the sky, take apart the holy things and fit them all inside? What I've kind of come to realize as I've taken a step back from one particular religion and examined all of them as a whole, to kind of put it in a metaphorical context, my grandma always told me this story when I was younger that like, she told the story like God at the beginning of time, God gave humanity truth, and truth was this beautiful gemstone that everybody loved, but everybody was envious and jealous for this truth, and so they all broke it and took a part of it for themselves. And so the objective of humanity now is to come together and reunite those pieces of truth, rather than keeping our individual piece that we built off of and then created our own narrative and story based on culture or environmental pressures and different things like that. Like I was just reading yesterday in a sociology textbook that the reason that cows are sacred in India had to do with ecological factors. There was a need for preserving cows for livestock, and so it became part of the cultural mythology. And now it's around today as just part of their religion. And there's all kinds of examples like that in culture nowadays, like random things like like superstitions are a great example of that. You know, like why black cats are considered bad luck, or walking under ladders, or opening umbrellas indoors. We just have these like superficial elements to our society that are like that started in a realm of truth that expanded into something that was just more than that, only as a way to convey a message, though.
Yeah.
And so what I like to focus on with my music, but also just kind of like in my own personal approach to life, is finding the core truth of what's being explained by someone else in their experience with God, and then melding that into my own and building that full picture of truth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What denomination were you raised in?
I actually pursued my faith myself a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Are you kind of like the black sheep?
I was for I was.
Your teenage years, probably.
Yeah, but like a black sheep in the way that I was like the Christian kid, like
Okay.
not like I didn't like I the first time I drank alcohol was when I was 25.
Damn, okay.
Yeah, and like that kind of stuff. Like I didn't swear, like no sex till marriage kind of stuff. Like that was the realm that I grew up in. I did that on purpose. Like looking back on that now, like I'm really grateful for the things that I learned. Obviously, I'm distanced myself from that now for many probably obvious reasons, but like the lessons and the things that I took from that stuff were all very useful, and like the things that I was like the pieces of truth that I was able to keep and carry on going forward and stuff.
Yeah.
But for me, it was my parents divorced before I was born, and my dad was just kind of like out of the picture for most of it, which is I think why religion became such a big crutch for me. It filled
stable.
that exactly. Well, one of the things that they talk about a lot in the Bible, but also a message that was repeated to me a lot by my own mother was God is represented as a father to the fatherless. There's specifically a verse that says that. And so my mom tried in her own way to set that up as an actual thing for me, and I took it and ran with it.
Yeah.
Right.
And so like when I was in high school, I did like varsity sports through high school and stuff. But every night, as soon as I was done with practice, I was at youth group. Like I was always at church. And so that's why so much of religion still makes its way into my music and stuff is until I was about 25, 26, it was like the main focus of my life.
Was it at that point? Was it hard being, rap or metal? Was it hard being religious and being in the music scene at the same time?
It definitely had its challenges. Yeah, I would say like it's being on the outside perspective of it and like being able to look back in on it, because I still have a lot of friends who are Christian as well. I'm reminded of the perspectives that other people were often projecting onto me. So like as a Christian, obviously I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I didn't have sex, I didn't curse, like I did all of those things. But I was in the metal scene as well. And that's just regular life, like it's not like a thing. Like, well, I mean, there's like the straight edge community and that kind of stuff, but like, it's just like people are just living their lives, and that kind of stuff is part of being a human. And so like, I was comfortable around it, but I could tell my presence made other people uncomfortable.
Fucking asshole.
I know. Well, yeah, like they just assumed that I was judging them, which I wasn't. Like I had my own personal convictions about it, and like it's a weird mental gymnastics to go through, because you do hold the convictions like that this thing is bad and the people who do it must be bad people, but also at the same time you have these friends who are doing those things and you don't actually think those friends are bad.
Yeah, otherwise they wouldn't be your friends.
Exactly. Like you just have this you kind of have this like abstract idea of the other people who do those things in your head, and you get angry or like ostracize them, but you don't ostracize your friends. You know? So I did have like challenges as being a Christian in the scene and stuff like that, where it was like me making other people uncomfortable made me feel uncomfortable, but it wasn't about what they were doing or anything like that. It was just that like they expected me to judge them. Yeah. Which, I mean, to be fair, is fair. Like that's kind of what you usually receive for that type of behavior from those types of people. But also I think that because I was kind of like the odd man out in the group, it also didn't give me a lot of moral ground to make those types of judgments on people. Cause like a good example of like where I came from mentally is, when I was first starting to date the woman who eventually became my wife, she wasn't raised the way I was. I was raised like really uncomfortable with alcohol. My mom is an ex-alcoholic, that kind of stuff. That's why I was like never around that stuff. But when we were dating, I saw her drink wine and had a panic attack.
Damn.
Because I didn't realize this at the time until that had happened, but I had been so ingrained with the idea that alcohol was so evil and that if you drank alcohol, you were going to do terrible things that like, and I didn't realize that I believed that until I saw the woman who eventually became my wife do it, where it was someone who was like, I was like really connected to doing those kinds of things. And then I realized my own prejudice and that kind of stuff in that. It was really crazy.
Yeah. And it makes sense. I mean, like, it's
well, you echo your social circle.
Yeah.
Like we as human beings were social animals. And like my community only told me that that's what happens when you do those things.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
like we had seen those people in our communities who like smoked weed one time and then they never came back to youth group or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and we were like, oh, that's going to happen to you, you know? Like,
Yeah.
like that was just like the norm, you know? So,
And I mean, we all have those beliefs, and it's just like those beliefs are grounded on solid things. It's just like there's a good reason why people are like, oh yeah, no, you shouldn't smoke weed. Like,
yeah.
like there's a good reason for that, but like weed is not going to kill you. Like weed is not going to do anything.
It's not the weed. It's your relationship to the weed. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so like the belief is there and there's a solid reason for the belief, but when you actually sit there and question the belief and when it comes time to when that belief is put into context here,
Yeah.
that's when it comes really down to it. And it's just like, oh shit, is this really a thing that I really need to,
Yeah.
base my
well,
life
and
around?
that was like that reaction that I had was a catalyst for me to really like examine my beliefs and stuff like that because I didn't want to be that guy who hated people for their life choices. You know,
Yeah.
like I like the message that I kept from Christianity is the idea of redemption because like myself being a person who was anti-homosexuals, like I was anti-gay marriage, I was anti-drinking, I was anti-abortion, I was very popular, pop culture would not have liked me a couple years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But because now I've seen that I can grow, a person can grow from those things. And I was so deeply rooted in them. Because of that, I've been able to see that like, I want to incorporate those types of like that redemptive arc in not just my music, but in my life as well. Like in the people I meet and trying not to judge people based on their actions,
Yep.
you know? Judging them by the actions, but like leaving room for growth in those actions, not condemning them, you know, leaving space for redemption and growth.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And my whole biggest thing has always been like, if you believe in activism, then you have to believe people are capable of change. Because
Change, yeah.
otherwise, what is the point
Yeah.
in activism?
Yeah. Otherwise, you're on a warpath.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, let's check out some tunes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's check out some music. But
All right.
we will be right back after this commercial break.
Boom.
Stay tuned.
I should have done that. Welcome back, fuck nuts.
That'll kick it off.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Just
Yep.
a big fuck you to the viewer.
Yeah.
So real quick.
But thank you for staying tuned this long if you're still watching once again.
Unfuck you a little bit.
Yeah, we'll rescind some of those fuck yous, I guess. So one big thing that I've definitely noticed about you is a very conscientious when it comes to mental health. So that is one thing I kind of wanted to touch base on as well.
Yeah. Like you said, that is something I tend to try to project into my music a lot. It's been a pretty intimate struggle for myself, going through my own battles with depression and anxiety. But also, my mother's been diagnosed with depression. My wife struggles with it. I have several family members who've worked in the mental health field. So the subject is not one I'm unfamiliar with. Growing up, I was introduced to counseling as a child to deal with my parents' divorce and stuff. So like the idea of addressing and tackling mental health has never been strange to me.
Yeah.
So bringing it into my music and my art and everything was just such a natural step. But it's I feel kind of fortunate in the fact that that's just kind of seems to be the way that culture's trending.
Yeah.
But that's a direction I was intending to head regardless. One of the things that I really want to start talking a lot more about is like I was discussing earlier with you guys, my own relationship with how I've dealt with my own anxiety and depression. Because like you can tell lots of other different people's stories, but when you tell your own story, you're speaking from a place of more authority and more power, and you have a little bit more. You're able to use that story to paint a better picture and help more people, I feel. And so when speaking about my own struggles, I went through a period of time where my anxiety was so intense that I was literally having a panic attack every single day. And like to the point, it was truly awful. Like, the point where I feel like every breath I took in was not working. Like I was having a heart attack. My lungs stopped working,
I fucking hate that.
Yeah. Like you literally feel like you're dying. One of my worst panic attacks, I was out to dinner with some family, and I was hyper fixated on the mortality of every person in the room. And the idea of the fact that I tend to abstract thoughts a lot regardless of anxiety and depression, but with anxiety and depression, it just goes in its own little tangents. But I was thinking about the idea of, in the next 20 years, there's a very strong likelihood that every person that was currently in that room would no longer be alive. And a very real possibility of that, And just the idea, I was the futility of everything we were doing in that moment was overwhelming.
Yeah.
And my lungs stopped working, my heart was pounding and stuff. And it's just that was my life for a long period of time. And so I tried working out was a help for me. I tried everything I possibly could. A lot of stuff helped, but nothing fixed it.
Yeah.
I was working out, I was eating healthy. I was surrounded with loving, supporting people. I was going to counseling and stuff as well, going to therapy and that kind of thing. And everything helped. I was able to pick up a lot of useful tools and a lot of useful strategies for addressing it. But
did you do the mindfulness stuff as well?
Yeah. So a couple of the tools that my therapist gave me were one of the things was recognizing the mental aspect of your depression, and just kind of being aware of your symptoms and examining them kind of from a third person perspective. So one of the things that he told me to do was when I knew that working out helped me. But one of the things with depression is that sometimes it saps you of all your motivation to do anything, let alone the things that help you. And so one of the things that he gave me was so you're laying in bed, that going to the gym is going to make you feel better. You're going to go to the gym, and this depression you're feeling right now is going to alleviate for a little bit. But your depression is keeping you trapped in that bed. What the reality of your situation is, you're not actually trapped in your bed. You just think you are. You have the physical strength to put one foot in front of the other and just take one step at a time. And so he was focus on that aspect first, so that when you tell yourself you physically, your brain is no, I can't do this, but you're physically I can.
Yeah.
You take the emotion out of the equation.
The mind is so powerful.
Yeah. And so doing that kind of stuff, it helped. And like I said, it helped. It didn't fix anything though. Yeah. So I eventually got to the point where medication became the route that I needed to take, because I was really scared of taking medication as well, because I didn't want to become as an artist, emotions are such a huge part of what I do.
Yeah.
I use it as my emotions are the storehouse from which I pull all of my music, all of my lyrical content, everything I write about, I care about. And if I do anything to fuck with my emotions, the brain is such a mystery still, we're still figuring out how to deal with all that stuff. I didn't want to take a pill and then lose my ability to be myself, even if it was to get rid of depression and anxiety, there was a part of me that liked being me still, and I didn't want to lose that. And so it's taking medication was kind of terrifying. The night before I actually started taking medication, I had this nightmare about being an emotional zombie.
Yeah.
My dream took me through this process of experiencing these things that should have elicited intense emotions, and I felt literally nothing.
Yep.
And the only thing I felt was the fear of that. In the dream, I saw somebody die that I cared about, and no emotional reaction. I did something I was really proud of. I would have been really proud of, no emotional reaction. I was just this blank slate moving through life, and it was terrifying. And that also contributed to my anxiety, you know. But like it just got to the point where I was like I always felt like I was dying, and I hated that. Like I got to the point where I hated my anxiety so much. I was like, fuck it. Like I need to do something. And so I started taking medication, and like the first time I was in a situation where I would have had a panic attack and it didn't come was life altering.
Yep.
No.
It was so crazy. Like I was, so a couple years back I had been on an accident on the freeway. And so, like brake lights are a big trigger for me, like especially on a freeway. And so we were in traffic, and my wife was driving, which is another trigger for me, just not being the driver, not specifically my wife.
When girls drive, it fucking stresses me out too.
No, I'm just like being the passenger, not being in control of the vehicle. And then seeing brake lights on the freeway, like my panic goes, they don't see we're about to get into a car accident.
Yeah.
And so the first time that happened, I could like physically feel the panic start to rise, and it got to like right about here in the middle of my chest, and then just stopped.
Yep.
And I was like, like I still had like full control. I felt the panic, but I still had like full control of my logical functions. I wasn't like spinning like a rabid animal, like my lungs still worked. My heart wasn't like out of control. Yeah. But I still felt some of the symptoms, and even that has abated a lot more since like the medication has built up more in my system. But it's been like it like gave me my life back, dude. Like it was just like being able to like go into crowds and not worry about whether or not I was going to have a panic attack. I had like developed this intense stomach condition where like I could only eat one meal a day. If I ate more than that, it would be like unbearable stomach pain.
Holy shit.
It was just because I was like always holding my anxiety in, and so my intestinal tract was just always compressed.
Yeah.
And so like I just had like I was I had a year and a half of waking up every morning nauseous.
Yeah.
And like the first couple months that those symptoms started, nauseous to the point where I couldn't get out of bed.
Yeah.
And that was all symptomatic of my anxiety.
That's crazy, man. Like,
yeah,
dude, I got this fucking Fitbit mainly because it has a heart rate monitor on it.
Right.
So when I would start feeling like, oh shit, okay, I feel like my heart's going too fast, and then I'd look at it and be like, idiot.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, like when you.
But it's reassuring.
Yeah,
because then it's like, okay, I know what's happening.
Yep. Dude, I got this. So one trigger for me that like really pushed me over the edge, that made me feel like, okay, I need to go get medication, was I started getting like what's the word, hypochondriac. I started being like anytime I had any sickness, any kind of symptom, I was like, I'm dying.
Yeah,
this is it. Like this is how I go.
Yeah,
and that just was so shitty.
Yep.
And like I forget where I was going with that, but yeah, like it was just like I would feel. Oh, I got this app because I would WebMD my symptoms and just make everything worse.
Oh, dude, never fucking look at
right?
WebMD, man.
But like I was just so desperate for an answer because I was like, maybe this will tell me I'm not dying and that will help me feel better. Yep. But it always tells you got stomach cancer.
Yeah. Next thing you know, it's like, oh, maybe I have that too.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, this doesn't help. But I got this other app that's like, it gives you like the more toned down diagnosis, and I was like, dude, that was like such a help. It was like, you definitely have a common cold, and I was like, thank you. Oh my god. Like it's like your nose is just stuffy, you're fine. Like
Oh my god.
And there's definitely a lot of fears that come with like medication. I mean, there's
for real.
Yeah, there's that fear of losing yourself, but it's just like, I don't know.
It can go wrong for some people,
It definitely does. Like I've had experiences with I've had a great experience with the current medication I'm on.
Yeah.
But I just had a horrible experience with one before that.
Yeah.
And so like it definitely can go wrong, but I feel like there definitely is this viewpoint where you're just like, oh yeah, no, medication's for the weak. Like, no, you just fucking buckle down and get through it.
Yeah.
Like, no, dude.
Yeah.
Like
the old buckled down.
Yeah. Like, just walk it off, dude. Just like, just walk off this young PTSD. Like, what the fuck? Like, no, dude.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like it's definitely we're definitely to the point finally where we can talk about medications, but also like there definitely needs to be a conversation about like you won't get you might not get the right medication right off the get-go. Like, I feel like that needs to be a big thing that needs to be talked about more, because I feel like a lot of people that are in the camp of like, I refuse to take medication, have taken a medication and just didn't get the right one.
Yeah, I've run across that before. Like a lot of people who've run the gauntlet, and I mean, I have all empathy for those people as well. Like, because I've also diagnosed with ADD, and I went through a period of time where I was trying to get medication for that as well, just because I was working an office job at the time, and being ADD and at a desk is really difficult. And so I started taking medication to help with that, and it really did help a lot with my work production, but it fucked my social life. Like I became like incredibly irritable. It made my anxiety and depression way worse. I was honestly a catalyst for my anxiety and depression becoming a lot worse.
What did they give you?
I got it was like the off-brand version of Adderall, so basically meth. You know, like
But no, like, that'll definitely like stimulate anxiety and depression.
Exactly, and it because it was a stimulant, it jump started all that stuff for me, and like just it took something that I was already dealing with and just made it way worse. And so like I absolutely empathize and understand the struggle of doing medication wrong. You know, I and one of the problems is sometimes you kind of have to take control of that directive yourself. Because doctors can only help you so far. You know, like the doctor that I was going to for the Adderall medication was trying to give me more, and I was telling him, this isn't working for me. This is making my life worse. And eventually I had to be at the point where I just switched doctors. I was like, this guy isn't helping me anymore.
Yeah. You're not like, listening, dude.
Exactly. He wasn't hearing me. Like, you know, you have to sometimes, unfortunately, not everybody knows this, but you have to take control of your own narrative. And not everybody has the information on how to do that.
Yeah. Well, when you trust a fucking medical professional.
Which you should be able to do.
Yeah. And I feel like in the medical field as well, there is still, to a certain extent, like a lot of confusion as to what to do with depression still, or just mental illness. Well,
you were saying that like it's kind of, we're getting to a point where we can finally have that conversation, and I think the conversation that's finally happening is, what is depression? And when you finally start to address that question, it helps you answer the question of whether or not it's a medical, like you need medicine, or if you need if you just need to go work out more, or if you you broke up with your girlfriend and you're just feeling sad for a little bit. There's different levels to that, or like you mentioned PTSD, and you know there's all these different contributing factors that can lead to those types of manifestations of mental illness. And there's all kinds of different solutions for them. But that's like really what I want to like dig into with making that a part of my music is digging into the fact that the solutions do exist. Because so many people, myself included, and my wife for most of her life have been, you just kind of like, you just accept the fact that you're fucked up. Like that's what my wife, whenever she tells her story of dealing with medication and stuff, is like, that was the narrative she told herself for so long, which prevented her from getting help, was that she was like, I'm just fucked up. Like you remove the option for a better, so you stop addressing it because it is such an overwhelming problem that you don't have answers for. And unfortunately, she grew up in an environment where there wasn't a lot of addressing of mental health, like in her social circles or in any other circles that she found herself in. Unlike myself, she wasn't around people who were comfortable with having that conversation, and so she just thought that's how everybody was.
Yeah, well, there's probably a lot of kids that are out there that are in the same kind of life cycle.
Yeah, exactly. And then you commiserate with each other, and you find out that everybody's dealing with you. You're just like, well, I guess we're just all fucked. You know? Well,
that's the cool thing about music. You can write about it.
Exactly.
And people can say, oh, well, you know what? Fucking me too.
And
you don't feel so alone.
That was a big thing that I brought. I actually wanted to bring up as well, that a tool I got from my therapist as well, was the idea of when you feel that isolation, because the isolation is a big part of the symptom of depression. Is it traps you in being alone, as if the people around you are burdened by your presence, or burdened by your problems. And one of the things that my therapist told me to do was, like, when you're feeling that specifically, make a post on Facebook, or we have so many different ways to reach people. Like text a friend or something like that, and just let them know you're feeling that. And just be bold enough to take that step and be like, hey, I feel like all of you hate me. Do you? You know, give them the opportunity to help you destroy that internal narrative that really, like, for most people, I mean, there are some dickheads out there who that genuinely earn some of that dislike. But for most people, if they ask that question, they're going to find enough people who love them and support them to help them break that particular mental cycle of feeling alone.
On that note too, it's a really interesting thing about the difference between, so if someone does post something online or reaches out to somebody, you get one of two responses, which it's either a sympathy response or an empathy response.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the empathy response is much more helpful because the sympathy response could be something as, well, at least you still have this, or at least that. And I saw a video recently where it touched on that. It's like the sympathy thing doesn't help as much because it's like, oh, well, at least this or at least that. But the empathy thing is, oh, I feel that you're feeling that way, and I'll just feel this way with you for a little while.
I understand,
and that helps a lot more.
How that feels.
Because someone looking down on you be like, well, at least this,
Well,
it helps none.
It also
usually
speaks directly to that problem, like we were talking about being isolated. And if you feel isolated, and then someone comes in and says, "No, I'm experiencing the exact same thing as you," boom, that's already destabilized.
Yeah. Or just, I have experienced this. It got better. It will get better for you.
Yeah, and that's a big thing that I try to push. Is that it can get better.
Because one huge issue for me was just like trying to figure out with depression was coming to the understanding that it was that mine is chemical. Because for me, I was just like, there were points in my life where I was just like, okay, I can understand why I'm depressed right now. Like, this is happening.
It makes sense.
Yeah. And then, but there would be times when everything was going right and everything was I should be happy, but I just wasn't.
Yeah.
And like understanding that and understanding that like that's not going to be solved. Like, yes, working out might make that feel a little bit better, but that working out will not solve that. Like, that is something that I really just needed to sit down with a goddamn professional and get prescribed a medication that worked for me.
Yep. And I think that so I ascribe to the idea that we should all be approached, every human being should be approached with a certain level of sympathy because none of us asked to be here. We all just kind of like woke up in the bodies and circumstances that were handed to us. And so like when a person's struggling, specifically chemical, circumstantial, whatever their depression route may be, a lot of times you'll see like a really negative manifestation of their behavior because of that. So my going back to touching on empathy, when I was going through that period of time taking medication for ADD, my coping strategy for living my life as a decent human being was to take those as like a really intense stimulant for doing work and everything like that. And then I would start to have these really intense panic attacks. So then I would smoke weed to come down. And I was always on something, but if I wasn't, I'd become an asshole. And I'm like, for people who know me, like obviously we've only been talking for a short period of time, but people who know me know that like I tend to be a very welcoming, kind, warm person.
Oh, maybe you're just an asshole. Actually.
Maybe deep down.
Maybe deep down, you're just like all of us. You're a fucking asshole.
Well, that's the thing is it gave me empathy for the assholes. That like you start to realize that like sometimes what it is there's a person who doesn't know they have like an undiagnosed mental illness, and because like I said, we wake up in these bodies, we don't know what normal is. We don't know what like in my wife's example, she grew up being depressed and she didn't realize she was depressed until she was 25 and got medication for it and was suddenly able to like her life for the first time. She didn't realize that was uncommon. Like she said that she, when she was taking so they give you like a little like survey beforehand. Like when you go through your diagnosis, they're like, how often do you feel depressed? How often do you feel suicidal? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, do you feel this or that? Those types of questions. And when she was answering everything in the extreme, and the doctor was like, okay, so you're severely depressed. She was like, is that not how everyone answers those questions?
Dear God.
Well, like she just thought that's just what regular life is, and she was forcing a smile, so she assumed everybody else was too. And then when going through my own process, like touching back on dealing with Adderall medication and the come down and what that did to me emotionally and psychologically, like there were times, and I'm not an aggressive person, but there would literally be times where I was waiting for someone to pick a fight with me. I haven't been in a fight since I was in 3rd grade, but it just fucks with you mentally. And like knowing that gives you empathy for the experience of the people around you,
And to speak to your wife's situation, I mean, like, to feel like you thinking that everybody goes through that, you don't want to approach somebody else with your issues because you automatically assume that they have just as much on their plate and can't possibly accept yours.
Yeah, exactly. On the inverse, that's true. Yeah,
and your support system is there. I mean, the support system. There are people in your life that want to help you, and you're not burdening them. You're simply allowing them to help you, because and a lot of the time it's just you have too much on your plate. Yeah, and it's just like giving some of that whether to somebody else. Just even if it's in the form of talking. Like, it just helps so much. Like,
yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I think that like it also comes down to really, like, at the end of the day, we're social animals. You know, like, we need community. And so one of the things that is starting to develop in current society with the trends with social media as a means of connection, but also of disconnection. I was learning about this in one of my classes. There's in sociology, there's two different distinctions between major social groups. There's as an individual, you have your primary social group and you have your secondary social group. Primary social groups would be categorized as something like immediate family, your close friends, people you elect to spend time with. Whereas secondary relationships are like coworkers, classmates, people who you might play a sport with, people that you meet with for a specific purpose, and then as soon as that purpose is complete, you disband. What the problem we're starting to see in modern society is that secondary social groups are primarily centered around an unconscious competition. Even in places like if you're working together on a team, there's an unconscious aspect of I have to do better than that person, so I look better than them, or whatever, you know, like, or oh, they look better than me, so I have to do better. You know, like, there's that unconscious level of competition. They're not actually part of your family; they're part of your secondary social group. And one of the problems that we're seeing nowadays is that you're supposed to use your primary social group as a recharging station for you to go into your secondary social group to excel. Nowadays, primary social groups are shrinking because we go out of our homes less, we spend less time with our families, we spend less time with our friends even. And secondary social groups are growing because we make work connections and we friend each other on Facebook, and then we never unfollow each other. And so the separation that's required from secondary social groups isn't happening, and the recharging from primary social groups isn't happening. And so we're spiraling into this environment of feeling like we're actually constantly at war with our environment, and we don't have safe places for us to divulge this deep depression or anxiety or these existential dreads or different things like that, because we're unconsciously competing with everybody. And I was actually thinking a lot about it in the context of the music communities as well. Like, there's a lot of, like, for myself, I would say that my biggest secondary social group would be the music community. I have like, if you look at me and your Facebook, I'm sure we have like 119 mutual friends right now or something ridiculous like that. And I don't know if I personally know half of them. But all those people see everything I post and make comments on it and make like or ignore it, or, you know, like, and that plays a role into my mental structure of the universe around me. And like nowadays we're seeing, you know, social media has huge, wonderful benefits when it comes to like connecting people and promoting music and making the world accessible. But also at the same time, when it comes to our mental health in that way specifically, it is only detrimental.
You know, I agree completely.
Well, we're in a weird age.
It is.
I mean, it's unfortunate because competition is very important. But too much competition and not being able to recharge.
Exactly. It's the balance.
I mean, I have a social tank like everybody else does. Some people have more of a fucking reserve than others.
Absolutely.
And dude, when I'm done, I need to go and watch some fucking Sports Center.
My wife.
Or fucking just relax. Or be with your significant other.
She counts on me to be the guy to cut us out of the party. Because I have no problem being like, 9 o'clock, I'm out.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Especially if you set the precedent.
Exactly.
You know I'm going to show up at 7, be gone by 9. So don't fucking throw a fit.
I'm not gonna lie. I have unconsciously started doing I unconsciously started just leaving social gatherings like without dude.
The Irish exit.
Yes, the old Irish exit.
Dude.
I've pulled that many a time.
It works.
Yeah, it does. And then I feel like a dick later.
I know, right? Yeah, it just never goes over well.
Should have at least said bye.
Well, we're gonna actually have to pull kind of one of those exits on this podcast here.
No
But so for let people know where they can check you out?
Yeah, all my stuff right now is on SoundCloud. I'm working on getting onto Spotify. I've got a couple music videos on YouTube. All my handles on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everything is etc. AZ, ETCETERA. It's actually a full word. Apparently not a lot of people knew that, which I didn't realize when I picked that name. So that's why I've also been going by ETC.
Fucking public education.
I know, right? But it's at etc. AZ. So yeah,
awesome. Well, thanks for coming, man. We really enjoyed having you.
It was a good time. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And thank you, the viewer, for watching all the way to the goddamn end.
Thank you.
So, yes, thank you once again. My name is Andre.
I'm Ryan.
And thank you for watching the Arizona Breakdown.
You know, with him saying that, I have to think sometimes, and I think we all have to as, musicians,